Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm excited to share part 9 of Pandora and the Eternal War. As you know, the stakes are higher than ever with the Metacup approaching and the Oracle's prophecies looming over our heroes. The twists and turns ahead will challenge everything Pandora thought she knew about her destiny. If you've enjoyed the series so far, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with your friends. I'd love to hear your theories in the comments. What do you think will happen next in the Metacup? Can Pandora overcome the trials ahead? Without further ado, let's dive right into the next chapter. I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Pandora and Camilla were already seated next to each other, the excitement in the stadium palpable as they turned their attention to the arena below. They watched intently as Johannes and Martina squared off against one another. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and Pandora couldn't help but feel a thrill at the impending clash. Martina, sporting a C-rank Arcanus, faced off against her opponent, who possessed a unique ability that piqued Pandora's curiosity. The announcer's voice boomed through the stadium, capturing everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two extraordinary fighters tonight. Keep an eye on Johannes, whose power remains a mystery. Rumor has it he can temporarily paralyze anyone who meets his gaze. Martina, aware of the threat, averted her eyes from Johannes, focusing instead on the ground. This tactic, however, proved difficult as she attempted to engage in combat without making eye contact. Pandora noticed the tension in Martina's posture, the way she seemed to be searching for a way to attack without revealing her gaze. In a swift movement, Martina reached into her bag, pulling out seeds which she hurled onto the ground. Almost instantaneously, plants began to sprout, breaking through the concrete as if the earth itself had awakened. Roots twisted and turned, reaching out with fierce determination to ensnare Johannes. Pandora's interest was piqued as Johannes's eyes flashed white, and in that moment, it seemed as if he had gained the upper hand. But then, to her surprise, Martina staggered back, collapsing without any resistance as if her body had given up entirely. The plants continued to surge forward, moving in a predetermined path, even though their controller was rendered unconscious. What a twist, Pandora thought, her eyes wide with intrigue. She noted how the plants acted with a strange determination, locked into their course. After a brief moment, Martina regained consciousness and instinctively ducked behind the vines, clearly understanding that eye contact had been a ruse. It seemed Johannes needed to see his target, not the other way around. Camilla leaned over, her voice laced with satisfaction. See? Johannes has already lost. He's out of the ring. Pandora nodded, leaning back in her seat as the realization hit her. The fight had concluded more quickly than she anticipated. After that duel, 5 more battles unfolded, each one disappointingly brief and lacking in excitement. But then she caught sight of someone who captured her full attention. Standing at the edge of the arena was Makito, his ice ability mesmerizing in a way she hadn't expected. Unlike traditional ice powers, his seemed to resemble cold blue flames, a bizarre and captivating phenomenon. Pandora recalled seeing him during the race the previous day, recognizing him as the twin brother of Reno, who controlled hot ice. Interesting, Pandora thought, her eyes narrowing as she studied Makito. These two abilities, cold flames and hot ice, were undeniably compelling. They appeared to be at least D rank, possibly even middle D rank, or perhaps nearing the upper limits of that classification, but definitely not yet C rank. As she observed the twin brothers, a calculated assessment began to form in her mind. She pondered whose ability she might want to steal, Makito's unique cold flames or Reno's intriguing hot ice. The potential power in either seemed to hover just out of reach, yet tantalizingly close. Her thoughts spiraled deeper into strategy and ambition, weighing the pros and cons of each power, when suddenly a sharp beep from her armband pulled her back to reality. The announcer's voice cut through the din of the stadium, breaking her concentration. Attention, everyone. After a brief intermission, we will have a newcomer fighting against Lilith. The announcer chuckled, correcting herself. I meant to say that Pandora and Lilith will face off after the evening break. The crowd erupted in excited chatter, and the announcer added, refreshments are now available. Feel free to relax and enjoy the break. Pandora exchanged a glance with Camilla, who grinned, clearly relishing the thought of the upcoming fight. For Pandora, however, thoughts of the battle faded as her mind shifted toward the potential outcomes of her own clash with Lilith. Her interest in the abilities around her momentarily overshadowed by the prospect of her impending duel.
Pandora stepped into the bustling corridors of the futuristic stadium, the air buzzing with excitement and energy. Colorful lights blinked above her as spectators milled about, their faces alight with anticipation for the duels ahead. As she navigated through the crowd, the rich aroma of various street foods wafted through the air, drawing her attention. Her senses were captivated, especially by the scent of fresh strawberries dipped in sweet, velvety chocolate. Those strawberries look amazing, Pandora thought, her mouth watering at the sight of the bright red fruit gleaming under a layer of melted chocolate. She felt a tug in her chest, a familiar longing for the indulgence she hadn't allowed herself to savor in a long time. It was a simple pleasure, yet so enticing, and the thought of tasting them made her heart race with excitement. As she approached the stall selling the strawberries, she hesitated. I shouldn't spend too much. I barely have enough money as it is. Just as she was about to step away, she felt a gentle nudge at her side. Here, Camilla said, appearing beside her with a warm smile. She pulled out a few bills, her eyes twinkling. I'll buy them for you. I know you're a bit low on funds right now. Are you sure? Pandora asked, looking down at her empty pockets with a hint of embarrassment. I don't want to impose. It's no trouble at all. Camilla insisted, her voice bright. You're going to need your energy for the fight later. Consider it a sponsorship. Pandora felt a swell of gratitude. Thanks, Camilla. I really appreciate it. Camilla ordered the strawberries, and Pandora watched as the vendor expertly coated the plump fruit in warm chocolate, each dip leaving a glossy finish. The moment the skewers were handed over, Pandora wasted no time. She bit into a strawberry, savoring the rush of flavors as the sweet chocolate mixed with the tart juiciness of the fruit. It was a heavenly explosion on her taste buds. As she savored her treat, Pandora's mind began to wander. Being here, surrounded by so many people with incredible abilities, it's intoxicating, she mused internally. So many powers, so much potential. Each person is a mystery waiting to be unraveled. The thought sent a thrill through her. She couldn't help but wonder how it felt to possess those abilities, to be able to manipulate reality with a mere thought. Her thoughts shifted to the upcoming fight against Lilith. She had seen glimpses of Lilith's power, fire manipulation with a unique twist. Lilith's ability allowed her to control heat, making her resistant to her own flames, a talent Pandora found fascinating. Imagine being able to unleash flames without fear of getting burned. That's something I could really use, she thought, the allure of Lilith's ability shimmering in her mind. Lilith's fire was not just destructive, it was an extension of herself. The way she commanded it with grace and ferocity suggested a deep connection to her abilities, something Pandora craved. If I could just get close enough to understand how it works, I might be able to. As Pandora continued to eat, she considered the implications of her thoughts. What if I could absorb her power? The idea sent shivers down her spine. The thought of adding fire to her repertoire, to mix it with her already formidable chaos abilities, was tantalizing. Yet, the knowledge that many would consider it unethical lingered in the back of her mind. But who could stop me? This world thrives on competition. I'm just playing the game. Feeling the warmth of Camilla's presence beside her, Pandora turned to her friend, who was scanning the crowd with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Are you ready for this? Pandora asked, trying to gauge Camilla's mood. I'm excited but a little nervous, Camilla admitted. You'll be great, though. Just remember to stay focused. Yeah, Pandora replied, her mind still racing with thoughts of the duels. I just hope I can keep up. If I'm going to make a name for myself, I need to harness every opportunity I can get. I can't afford to hesitate. I've got to seize the moment, she thought, determination building within her. As they moved through the crowd, she felt the weight of their surroundings, the mix of powers radiating from the people around her. They all have something to offer, something that could help me become stronger. I just need to be patient and strategic.
Pandora took a deep breath, the energy of the crowd pulsing around her like a living entity. Patience, she reminded herself, is a powerful weapon. She needed to stay focused, to strategize. Her eyes flicked around the bustling arena, the vibrant colors of the stalls, and the buzz of excitement, tempting her to reach out and claim the abilities of those nearby. But if she acted impulsively, she risked exposing herself, jeopardizing her ultimate goal of entering the Helios Academy. Helios Academy, she thought, the name reverberating in her mind. It was her gateway to weaving her influence through the ranks of the Hero Association, to finding allies and stealing more powers. For now, patience was the name of the game. A sly grin crept onto her face, not the maniacal grin of before, but a more calculated smile, one that hinted at both madness and cunning. In her mind, she pictured herself as a point in the present, surrounded by countless branching paths of possibility. Each path would take shape as she maneuvered through the academy, starting with her need to defeat Lilith. She couldn't rush this. It was critical to assess the situation carefully. Winning the Meta Cup would open doors, introducing her to potential classmates. No, I shouldn't just steal their abilities right away, she mused, her thoughts weaving intricately. I need to understand them first. What drives them, their backstories, their desires? A cunning strategy formed. In about 6 months at Helios, she could make her move, perhaps venturing out into the city at night to hunt for powers. Then, another thought struck her. What if I could drain abilities from villains just before they perish? It wouldn't matter if they were heroes or villains. The chance to seize their powers while they were vulnerable could yield remarkable results. The idea of breaking into a museum in the future to steal the powers of the monsters displayed there was tempting. There were so many ways to acquire abilities. Her power wasn't limited to humans. If she qualified, she could even volunteer for monster hunts, collecting abilities in the process. This would allow her to achieve her long-term goals without drawing too much attention. If I play my cards right, my ultimate goal of entering the Helios Academy and growing more powerful without taking major risks will be within reach, Pandora thought as she walked through the hallways of the Meta Center. These were the thoughts of a student willing to sacrifice everything for her ambitions. She approached the main entrance and stepped into the stadium. The vast arena was filled with the roaring cheers of the crowd, waiting eagerly for the next fight. In the center, the stone platform was still being repaired. Pandora watched intently as a man with grayish skin placed his hand on the ground. As he held it there, the stone began to reassemble and solidify. 2 trucks poured concrete onto the ground. With each move of the man's hand, the concrete flowed smoothly, merging into a new platform. It seeped into the cracks, repairing the spots where stone or concrete had vanished or been pulverized. Pandora was transfixed by the sight, watching the platform restore itself, as the man withdrew his hand and redirected the remaining concrete back into the trucks. Impressive, she thought, feeling a small flicker of envy. What a powerful ability! If only I could use it for my own. As the countdown to her match started at 30 seconds, Pandora felt a surge of excitement in her stomach. She stepped onto the freshly formed stone platform, her thoughts already racing. The man with the gray skin glanced at her briefly, his face calm with concentration as he finished the repairs. The energy in the arena was electric, the audience's excitement buzzing in the air as the moment approached. Luma Arios stood rigid on the balcony, reserved for the elite of the Hero Association. Dressed in a sharp gray suit, her eyes, a shifting hue between green, blue, and gray, flicked away from the notepad in her hand. It contained the names of promising candidates, young potentials she had scouted, whose latent strength could shape the future of the hero ranks. She held it delicately, knowing the power of the names inside. But now, her focus was on the girl below in the arena, the one named Pandora. Pandora was a mystery, and Luma didn't like mysteries. She liked control, knowing what cards were in play and how much power each piece held on the board. As she stood there, gazing through the thick glass that separated her from the roaring crowd and the battle about to begin, her brow furrowed. She had assessed dozens of individuals before, and each time her arcane had given her clear readings, potential quantified, laid bare before her. But with Pandora, something was wrong. The countdown was ticking, 10 seconds left before the fight would begin. Luma took a deep breath and activated her arcane. Her world slowed as her perception heightened, and her vision tunneled towards Pandora. She expected to see the usual, A flash of color around Pandora's form, a shimmering of light, or an aura that would tell her exactly what Pandora's future held. But nothing came. At first, it was an empty void, a blank space where potential should have been. This had never happened before. Even the weakest candidates displayed some level of potential, even if it was stagnant or meager. But with Pandora, there was nothing. Luma's mind raced. Was Pandora hiding her true power? Or was she truly that insignificant? No, that couldn't be right. She had felt something about this girl, an unease she couldn't shake. But this emptiness gnawed at her instincts. The countdown ticked down to 9. Luma pushed harder with her arcane, probing deeper, trying to pierce the barrier she felt around Pandora's potential. There had to be something, anything. Then she hit it, a wall, an invisible, impenetrable force that stood between her and Pandora's future. Her mind recoiled in confusion. This wall wasn't something physical, but it was as if Pandora's potential was blocked off from being perceived. It had never happened before, not with any subject. She had always been able to see through, to know what was to come. Countdown, 8. Her heart pounded, a chill creeping up her spine as she mentally pressed against the barrier. She couldn't understand it. Luma wasn't used to feeling powerless, but now the sensation clawed at her mind. She pushed harder, her entire focus narrowing on breaking through that block, as if her arcane could physically tear the barrier down. Then, like a sudden crack in a dam, a fissure appeared. Countdown, 7. A small, almost imperceptible crack in the wall of Pandora's potential. Luma took a sharp breath, sensing the massive potential beyond it. But instead of the usual clarity or growth patterns she expected, she felt only confusion, an overwhelming flood of raw energy that swirled and surged without direction. It was chaotic, wild, and far too much for her to process all at once. It hit her like a wave, knocking the mental wind out of her as she struggled to hold on to any sense of understanding. Countdown, 6. This energy wasn't controlled. It didn't follow any pattern or structure. It was pure chaos, bending and twisting without any logic. The sensation was disorienting, making her feel unsteady, like she was standing on a shifting ground. Her heartbeat quickened, not from excitement, but from an instinctive fear. This wasn't like anything she had encountered before. Countdown, 5. Her arcane trembled under the weight of the potential she was glimpsing. It wasn't just powerful, it was limitless. No end, no ceiling. Luma's throat tightened as she felt the absence of any boundary to this potential. It was a well with no bottom, an energy source that had no end in sight. She had never seen anything like it, and the more she realized this, the more overwhelming it became. Countdown, 4. And then the flames appeared. At first, they were distant, a flicker on the edge of her perception, but they grew rapidly, surrounding the chaotic energy like a storm of violet fire. These flames were unlike anything she had seen before, not just dangerous, but unnatural, as though they themselves existed outside of reality's rules. They burned with a purpose she couldn't comprehend, chaotic yet alive in a way that made her mind scream for retreat. Countdown, 3. Luma's breath caught in her throat. The flames swirled around Pandora's potential, not as a sign of strength or power, but as a warning. This was something beyond her understanding, and worse, it was as if the flames themselves noticed her presence. A cold dread seeped into her bones as she felt that invisible gaze return, as though something or someone inside Pandora had realized it was being watched. Countdown, 2. Her stomach twisted. The gaze was not just an awareness. It felt sentient, alive, and hostile. The violet flames seemed to pulse in response to her intrusion, flaring up violently as they sought to push her away. Luma recoiled mentally, but it was too late. She had already glimpsed too much. The darkness within Pandora had acknowledged her, and now it was turning its attention fully towards her. Countdown, 1. Her mind screamed in horror as she realized there was no limit to this potential, no structure, no endpoint. Pandora's potential wasn't bound by anything, and the more Luma understood this, the more overwhelming it became. The sensation of infinity crushed her, filling her with an almost primal fear. It was too much. Her arcane snapped under the pressure, and she collapsed, her body convulsing as her senses returned to normal. Luma fell to the floor, vomiting violently as the overwhelming sense of limitlessness dissipated. 2 of her colleagues rushed to her side, alarmed by her sudden collapse. But Luma could barely register their presence. Her body trembled uncontrollably, her mind still reeling from what she had seen. Pandora had no limits, and that terrified her more than anything else.
Page 5. Luma slowly pushed herself up from the ground, the cool surface of the arena floor still sending shivers through her body. Her heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she took in her surroundings. The two men from the Hero Association rushed to her side, their expressions a mix of concern and confusion. "Are you okay?" one of them asked, his voice urgent, eyes scanning her for signs of injury. "My digestion was just really bad," she replied, forcing a weak smile. It was a flimsy excuse, but she needed a moment to gather herself. The immense potential she had sensed still lingered in the air, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to unfold. With a final, fleeting glance at Pandora, who stood defiantly in the arena, Luma quickly gathered her notebook. The girl radiated an energy that was both captivating and terrifying, and Luma knew she needed to leave before she became ensnared by it. As she turned away, the guards followed closely behind. "Luma, wait," one called out, but she brushed off their concern. She had to excuse herself to the official organizers of the Medicup and the high-ranking representatives of the Hero Association. Names floated through her mind: event planners, security personnel, and a few heroes assigned to oversee the event's safety. As she exited the arena, the noise of the crowd faded behind her, replaced by the dull hum of the bustling hallways. The walls were adorned with sleek metal panels, illuminated by soft, ambient lights that gave the space a modern yet sterile feel. She maneuvered through the throngs of people, her mind racing. Finally, she emerged into the fresh air outside. A sleek black luxury car awaited her, its polished surface glinting under the sunlight. The vehicle was opulent, its windows tinted for privacy, and the leather interior promised comfort. The chauffeur stood by the door, a professional air about him, while two bodyguards flanked the vehicle, their presence imposing. They wore dark suits that fit impeccably, muscles barely concealed beneath the fabric, their eyes scanning the surroundings with vigilance. Luma slid into the backseat, the cool leather enveloping her as she sank into its embrace. As the doors closed, she wiped her mouth with a tissue, cleaning the remnants of her earlier distress from her shirt and chin. Tossing the crumpled tissue out the window, she ignored the surprised looks from pedestrians. With her heart still racing, her mind sharpened, weighing her options. On one hand, she could confront this anomaly, this singularity named Pandora. On the other hand, reporting her findings to the Hero Association loomed like a dark cloud, filled with uncertainty. Would they even believe her? What if it ignited a prolonged conflict? If Pandora's potential became known, it could escalate rapidly. Luma recalled the chaos energy she had sensed, the dark, flickering flames that seemed to consume logic itself. The memory struck her like a thunderbolt. It was chaos energy, a force that had baffled the Hero Association since its inception. A force that disregarded all reason, operating on its own erratic rules. Her thoughts turned to the recent E-ranked Chaos Zone, which had acted strangely. For a long time, it had remained stable, but abruptly, it had dropped to an F-rank designation. The anomaly was unprecedented, with satellites capturing images of a swirling mist and a faint light pulsing within. The fluctuations had puzzled the Hero Association, and they still debated what had caused this bizarre shift. Was it linked to the traitor alliance? The connection made her uneasy, knowing that it could lead to more dangers. To be able to manipulate chaos energy was genuinely terrifying. Luma was now certain that Pandora represented an existential threat. The potential she had sensed hinted at a conflict brewing, one that could spiral out of control if the Hero Association became aware. The longer she hesitated, the more opportunities she could find by aligning herself with Pandora. As she considered her choices, she weighed the risks against the rewards. Betraying Pandora was not an option. The consequences of deceiving someone with such immense power would be dire. She envisioned a scenario where Pandora, aware of her own capabilities, would not take kindly to treachery. Luma's mind raced with the possibilities. Would her end come swiftly, a flash of chaos that would consume her? Or would it be a drawn-out affair, tormenting her with the reality of her choices? Luma understood that the Hero Association had no loyalty to her. They saw her as a mere pawn in their larger game, utilizing her skills only for their benefit. An opportunist at heart, she had always navigated her allegiances based on what served her best. Now, she faced a pivotal choice: remain a cog in the Hero Association's machine or align herself with a potential ally of unimaginable strength. The scales tipped dangerously in favor of the latter, and with that realization, she began to formulate a plan.
Luma sat in her sleek, black car, the interior glowing softly with the flickering lights of the dashboard. As she stared out at the gathering twilight, her mind drifted to Pandora, the girl whose potential she had glimpsed earlier. Luma found the thought of Pandora intriguing. This young woman, so powerful and yet so untrained, could become a significant asset. If I play my cards right, I could gain so much from her. She contemplated the best way to approach Pandora. I need to speak with her as soon as possible. Just be honest. Tell her the truth about what I see in her. Luma knew that establishing trust would be crucial, yet the stakes were high, and she decided it was best to keep this plan to herself. No one can know about this. The fewer people who are aware, the lower the risk of things going awry. Today, she would put on the act, feigning illness or some sort of digestive trouble to avoid the Metacup festivities. Better to keep a low profile for now. To make her performance convincing, she would allow herself to feel unwell, ensuring no one questioned her absence. Arriving home, Luma kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto her comfortable sofa, letting out a sigh as she stretched out. The soft cushions enveloped her, creating a sense of refuge from the chaos outside. Time for a little self-care. She made her way to the kitchen, boiling water for chamomile tea, the calming aroma wafting through her small apartment. Once settled on the couch, she grabbed the remote and activated the holographic projection of the live stream from the Metacup. As the shimmering image flickered to life before her, the room dimmed, enhancing the glow of the screen. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the cheers of the crowd echoing even through the speakers. The fight was already in full swing. As she watched, her heart raced with anticipation. The first glimpses showed that Pandora was currently airborne, and Luma's eyes widened as she saw the young woman plummeting from the sky. Incredible. The way Pandora moved through the air was extraordinary, her agility almost defying the laws of physics. More than just two arcanes, I suspect. Luma leaned closer, captivated by the sight of Pandora twisting mid-fall, her body seemingly repelling against the very air around her. The spectacle was mesmerizing. The energy radiating from Pandora was palpable, a mix of raw power and unpredictable potential. The battle raged on in the arena, each clash of arcanes sending shockwaves that reverberated even through Luma's living room. This girl could be a force to reckon with, she thought, a smirk creeping onto her face. And I need to ensure she sees me as an ally. As the scene unfolded, Luma could see the chaotic dance of combat, fire and energy swirling around as Pandora engaged her opponent. I must be there for her. With a renewed sense of purpose, she took a sip of her tea, savoring the warmth that spread through her. Luma felt the adrenaline begin to build. Tonight, everything changes. She knew that if she played her cards right, she could ride the coattails of Pandora's rise, gathering information and connections that could benefit her greatly. But first, she needed to keep her act together, maintain her facade, and wait for the right moment to strike. Some minutes earlier, the atmosphere in the stadium was charged with anticipation as Pandora stood on the platform, eyes fixed on the countdown. As it hit 0, the roar of the crowd echoed around her. Opposite her stood Lilith, a fierce opponent with flowing orange-red hair and fiery red eyes that glowed with intensity. Without warning, Lilith unleashed a torrent of insults, her taunts sharp as daggers, but Pandora remained unfazed, focusing her energy instead. As the battle commenced, Lilith sprang into action. Pandora could see the vibrant flames of her arcane flickering to life, hues of orange, red, and yellow dancing in the air. It was as if the fire itself was alive, roaring with heat as it rushed toward her. But instead of fear, Pandora felt a thrill coursing through her veins. The moment felt suspended in time, allowing her to appreciate the beauty of the fire. She realized that in her vampiric state, she would have been unable to withstand such heat, let alone as a mere human. Yet, her armor provided a layer of protection against the worst of the flames. With a sudden burst of agility, Pandora leapt into the air, twisting gracefully as the fiery blast shot beneath her. It felt like an elegant dance as she flipped upside down, her body moving fluidly. She landed softly on the ground, feeling the muscles in her legs coil and release with power. Just as she regained her composure, a wave of heat washed over her, and she noted with impressed surprise that Lilith possessed more power than she had anticipated. Determined not to be caught off guard, Pandora took off running as more fireballs barreled toward her, each one hotter and more aggressive than the last. The adrenaline surged through her, heightening her senses, but the fireballs approached with frightening speed. This prompted Pandora to consider testing her earlier suspicions about her ability to partially transform. To ensure that her visual change would go unnoticed, she surrounded herself with an illusion that maintained her appearance at that moment. Concentrating hard, she began the transformation into her vampiric state, feeling the strain of keeping her identity hidden as her essence shifted. The transformation could only happen if she truly desired it, and with every second that passed, the pressure mounted. After what felt like an eternity, she finally completed her transformation, the chaos energy remaining subdued as she hoped. Now came the challenge of how to control this partial transformation. Focusing intently on her head, she sought to revert it back to her human form. To her surprise, it was as effortless as her usual transformation. Now that she had figured it out, she was confident it would only get easier. Pandora's focus snapped back as she saw a massive fireball hurtling toward her, bigger and hotter than any she had faced before. It was at least the size of her body, moving with lethal speed. She thought it reckless to risk facing such deadly forces, even with heroes present who could intervene if necessary. Despite not knowing the full extent of their powers, she had witnessed people vanish from certain death in this arena before. The fireball was closing in fast, and if she were still in her human form, it would have been a severe threat. But with a crouch, she launched herself over the fireball, propelling into the air. To her confusion, Lilith called out a spell, Firestorm, to attack her in midair. The name seemed oddly melodramatic to Pandora, and she mused on why heroes felt the need to name their attacks, turning them into signatures. As she fell, Pandora didn't bother accelerating. The fiery whirlpool would disperse on its own. The brilliant orange-red cyclone of flames, bright enough to melt stone, collided with an invisible wall that divided the arena. The first barrier shielded the spectators from the powerful arcane abilities, while the second, visible barrier protected the Metacup from outside attacks, though it was rarely invoked. Lilith, realizing that Pandora had become faster and more agile, continued to attempt to catch her. For a brief moment, the battle seemed evenly matched, but it was an illusion. Pandora held back her full potential. Frustration bubbled within Lilith, who found it unbearable to drag out a fight with someone she deemed unworthy. With a final furious shout, she unleashed her ultimate arcane, conjuring a hellish inferno and naming it Furious Nova. As the inferno engulfed the entire stone platform, transforming everything into a whirlwind of flames and smoke, Lilith laughed, believing no one could survive in this sea of fire. But as she poured her energy into the attack, she coughed up blood, feeling dizziness wash over her. Suddenly, amidst the swirling chaos, she spotted Pandora, unharmed, standing defiantly in the smoke. "Why aren't you defeated?" Lilith shouted, her voice barely audible over the roar of flames. "What are you? How can you possess 3 different arcanes?" Pandora strode through the fire, unafraid, leaning in close to whisper in her ear. "I never said I only had 2 abilities. That was entirely your fault." With a desperate lunge, Lilith attempted to strike Pandora, but her image dissipated into smoke. A powerful blow from behind caught Lilith off guard, and everything around her faded to black as she collapsed to the ground.
Pandora stood over the unconscious body of Lilith, the arrogant, fiery woman who had caused her significant trouble in their recent encounters. Her breath came in quick bursts as the adrenaline rush began to fade. She glanced up at the camera drones hovering nearby, capturing every moment of the aftermath, and a question flickered through her mind. Would this become a problem for her? But then she remembered that the Metacup was now over, and she turned to head into the locker room. Inside the quiet room, she sank onto a bench, taking a moment to wipe the sweat from her brow and catch her breath. After about 25 minutes, Leon returned. He looked at her, his expression warm and respectful. "That was more exhausting than I thought it would be," she said, rising to change out of her gear. Leon nodded, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. I'm impressed with how well you can use your abilities. I didn't expect you to handle two different arcanes so effectively. A faint smile crept onto Pandora's lips, though the exhaustion still weighed on her. Just as she finished changing, the sound of an engine roaring to a stop outside reached her ears, followed by the sound of a limousine door opening. Mio stepped out, dressed in a tailored suit that flaunted his wealth. Hey, you two, get in. Pandora exchanged a glance with Leon, and after a moment's pause, she nodded. Mio flashed a bright smile as he beckoned them closer. The limousine was a vision of luxury, a sleek black and white design that felt both modern and inviting. The leather seats gleamed, and the interior boasted exquisite details. I've got a mango drink for you, Pandora, Mio said, grinning widely. I heard it's your favorite. Pandora looked at the drink with skepticism. Mango. I've never had mango juice before. Mio raised an eyebrow, curious. Why not? It's delicious. I grew up far from civilization, she replied. My parents were pretty much hermits. They sent me to my grandpa's for the summer to experience the world a bit, but then they died in a monster attack. It was hard for me to come back and navigate life here. Her tale flowed easily as she spoke with care. She knew that too much detail could raise suspicion. It was a tragic yet normal story, one that would likely prevent Mio from asking too many questions. I'm sorry to hear that, Mio said, his expression turning serious. That's tough to go through, but you're here now, and that's what matters. Leon observed the exchange, his demeanor calm yet watchful, skepticism flickering in his eyes. The limousine glided smoothly through the streets, the atmosphere inside comfortable and filled with anticipation. The drive didn't take long, and soon they arrived at the hotel owned by Mio's family. As they stepped out, Pandora noticed several other cars parked alongside the limousine. Mio's entourage emerged, their eyes filled with admiration for the wealthy heir. Mio, exuding charm and charisma, led Pandora and Leon into the hotel. I've planned a little celebration for tonight since the duels don't start again until noon tomorrow. You have to come, it'll be fun. Pandora hesitated for a brief moment before nodding. That sounds like a good idea. I could use a distraction. Leon shot Pandora a scrutinizing look, but he kept his thoughts to himself. She sensed that Mio's offer wasn't just casual. He was eager to ingratiate himself with her, likely seeing her potential and wanting to position himself close to her. She couldn't blame him. After all, she was powerful, and there was much he could learn from her. Together, they entered the hotel, ready for the party that promised to momentarily wash away the day's concerns. As they entered the hotel's ballroom, Pandora was immediately engulfed by the energy of the party. Music pulsed through the air, reverberating in her chest. The lights flickered and danced, casting colorful patterns across the crowd. Laughter and chatter filled the room, an overwhelming cacophony that threatened to consume her senses. Mio, full of enthusiasm, led the way, weaving through the throng of people. Come on, let's get you something to drink, he shouted over the noise, his voice barely audible amidst the revelry. Pandora followed closely, her instincts kicking in as the chaotic atmosphere reminded her of her vampire nature. The excitement around her was intoxicating, yet she remained cautious, determined to keep her true self hidden. She knew that revealing her hybrid nature could bring unwanted attention. In the midst of the festivities, she kept her vampiric features in check, maintaining the human guise that had served her well. Mio returned with 2 drinks in hand, one of which he handed to her. Here, this is a signature cocktail. You're going to love it, he exclaimed, clearly unaware of her true form. Pandora took the glass, raising it in a mock toast before taking a sip. The drink was colorful and sweet, a refreshing contrast to the loud environment around her. They found a spot near the dance floor, where the music thumped loudly, and the energy was palpable. As she drank, Pandora carefully observed the other partygoers, noting their revelry and indulgence. While many laughed and danced with abandon, she remained composed, maintaining her facade. As the night wore on, the crowd around them began to engage in drinking games, and Mio, in his jovial spirit, pulled Pandora into the mix. Come on, let's show them how it's done, he shouted, handing her another drink. Reluctantly, she participated, reminding herself to stay in control. The alcohol slid smoothly down her throat, yet she felt no effects. her hybrid nature allowed her body to process the substance swiftly. With each drink, she felt a strange sense of freedom. She could drink as much as she wanted without losing herself to the intoxicating effects, an unexpected advantage that surprised her. While others around her began to stumble and slur their words, Pandora remained sharp and focused. As she dominated every drinking challenge, she noticed Neo becoming more and more intoxicated. He laughed heartily, completely oblivious to her unchanging demeanor. "You're incredible. How can you drink so much?" he marveled, clutching her shoulder for support. Pandora smiled, playing along with his admiration. "I guess I just have a high tolerance," she replied, diverting his curiosity. Inside, she felt a thrill at the revelation that her vampiric nature allowed her to thrive in this environment. She could keep her secret hidden while enjoying the wildness of the party. As the evening progressed, she let loose just enough to blend in, laughing and dancing while ensuring she never revealed her true form. Yet, despite her careful approach, there was a lingering excitement that pulsed through her veins, a mixture of freedom and caution. Later, when the party began to wind down and guests started to trickle out, Pandora felt a mix of satisfaction and wistfulness. She had enjoyed the night, reveling in the atmosphere, yet a part of her knew that the joy would have to come to an end eventually. Once back in her hotel room, she lay down on her bed, the events of the evening playing over in her mind. She thought of Camilla, wondering how her friend was faring at home, and if she was facing any difficulties with her father. With thoughts swirling in her mind, Pandora closed her eyes, letting the fatigue of the night wash over her. The last thought before she drifted into sleep was a promise to herself: she would check in on Camilla soon. With that, she surrendered to the pull of slumber, the chaotic party fading into a distant memory as she slipped into a deep, restorative sleep. Pandora woke slowly to the soft chirping of birds outside her window. The melody brought a sense of calm over her, reminding her of the peaceful mornings in the forest where birdsong was her natural alarm. She sighed, feeling the cool morning air on her skin as she glanced at the large glass window, which was misted over with a light sheen of dew. The sunlight was just beginning to rise over the horizon, casting an orange glow across the city. But what struck her was the light of the moon, still high in the sky, unusually large and bright, illuminating the room alongside the morning light. Pandora sat up, the bed sheet falling away from her slender, muscled body. She stretched, feeling her muscles flex under her skin, and let her eyes wander to the window again. The shadow of the building stretched far into the city from the sunrise, but there was something odd. The moon was so bright it seemed to cast another shadow in the opposite direction. She frowned, the peculiarity of the moon's size and brightness unsettling her, though she brushed the thought aside. The mysteries of the moon, the sun, and the sky were as unsolvable as the secrets of 97% of the planet's surface, which remained unexplored. A small smile tugged at Pandora's lips at the idea of a world where most of it was still unknown. Sure, there were human satellites trying to map out the planet, but clouds often obscured their view, and satellites had a curious habit of disappearing. It would be a huge problem if it weren't so easy to send new ones into orbit. Her smile faded as her mind drifted back to reality. Today would be another busy day. Pandora rose from bed and began to get dressed, noting Leon's absence from the room. As expected, he was already up, probably enjoying his breakfast downstairs. She made her way to the door, glancing at the advanced locking system of the hotel room. With a simple wave of her hand, her plasma-based arcane activated, the scanner recognizing her unique signature. It was one of the most secure systems in the world. No one could enter except for her and Leon. Arcanes couldn't be copied, stolen, or destroyed. At least, that was the belief according to the Heroes Association. Pandora allowed herself a slight smirk at the thought as she left the room and entered the hallway. The hotel was luxurious, with long white and gold corridors that gleamed softly in the morning light. A few other guests were also stirring, opening their doors and stepping out into the hall, their sleepy faces a sign of the early hour. Pandora walked past them, her gaze drifting over the few people who shared the floor with her. One man in particular caught her attention. He possessed an arcane, though it was weak. His power, barely noticeable, sparked faintly in his aura, an orange-red flicker like the light of a dying ember. Pandora stopped briefly, curiosity piqued. His ability wasn't even active, but she could tell by the strange, dormant energy surrounding him. It was a low-level power, probably F rank, one of the weakest she had ever encountered. She couldn't resist the opportunity. Feigning a stumble, Pandora reached out and grabbed his hand to steady herself. The man looked surprised but quickly caught her, offering a polite smile as he helped her regain balance. He had no idea what had just happened. Pandora felt the power slip from him and into her with ease. Such a weak arcane would hardly be missed, and his obliviousness confirmed her suspicion. Those with lesser abilities never noticed when their powers were taken. She straightened, giving him a brief nod of thanks, before continuing on her way, her mind buzzing with what she had learned. It seemed that even dormant, inactive abilities could be stolen. The man had no idea what he had just lost, and it confirmed something important to her. If a power was weak enough, it was easy to take without anyone knowing. Her thoughts lingered on the discovery as she made her way downstairs to the grand dining hall. The hotel was a marvel of architecture, all smooth lines and opulent furnishings, the kind of place reserved for the elite. She spotted Leon immediately, seated at a table near the back, enjoying his breakfast. The soft murmur of conversation filled the air as other guests also began their day, the clinking of silverware mixing with quiet laughter. Pandora joined him, taking a seat across the table. Leon didn't ask her about the previous night. Instead, he gave her a simple look of acknowledgement. They exchanged a few words about mundane things, how she had slept, what their plans were for the day. But as they talked, Pandora's mind was elsewhere, her attention drawn to a faint buzz from her wrist. Her armband, an older model Leon had lent her, lit up with a notification. She tapped it, and a hologram projected itself into the air in front of her. Pandora sat at breakfast, surrounded by the clatter of hotel guests, the gentle clink of cutlery, and the hum of casual conversations. As she reached for her coffee, she felt a faint vibration from her bracelet. Her eyes narrowed, glancing down at the delicate device wrapped around her wrist. Without hesitation, she pressed the pearl embedded within the bracelet, activating the hidden holographic display. The light flickered into existence, casting a faint blue glow from her perspective, but it was invisible from other angles, a security feature she appreciated. Realizing it would be difficult to type with one hand, Pandora took off the bracelet and placed it flat on the table. Instantly, the hologram projected into the air before her, the keyboard hovering just within reach of both hands. A message appeared. The sender: Camilla. The message read, "Pandora, I'm sorry for hacking into your bracelet, but I have something important to tell you. We should discuss this in person, it's too risky digitally. Meet me at 10:30 in the northern park by the city wall." Pandora raised an eyebrow. Camilla. Hacking. This wasn't typical of her. Suspicion tugged at her thoughts as she typed back quickly. "Are you really Camilla?" To Pandora's surprise, she felt her lie detector arcane activate deep in her core. This strange, rarely used arcane sensed the truth even in written messages, a fact that startled her as she realized it was working now. The response came almost immediately. "Yes, it's me. Who else would it be?" The arcane pulsed again, confirming the truth. It was Camilla. Pandora leaned back in her chair, considering the unusual situation. Camilla's behavior was odd, but the truth was undeniable. The usefulness of her lie detector arcane surprised her, and she saw the potential in strengthening it. Pandora closed her eyes, focusing on the weaker arcanes she had accumulated, ones she had no use for. She dismantled those spheres, letting their energy surge into the lie detector arcane, amplifying its power. She felt the process unfold inside her as the weaker arcanes were destroyed, their essence merging with her strengthened ability. Her eyes opened with newfound clarity. The message was real. Camilla's urgency was not a lie. Finishing her breakfast, Pandora stood, pulling her coat tighter as she stepped out of the hotel. The morning wind whipped through the streets, biting at her skin. Turning to Leon, who had been waiting for her in the lobby, she said, "I have something to take care of. I'll meet you at Metacup at 1. Leon gave a small nod, though the tension in his eyes was clear. He didn't ask what it was, but Pandora could feel the growing irritation within him. Too many secrets, he seemed to think. Beside him, Lola, the oversized wolfhound, barked softly, but even the massive presence of the creature seemed to draw no attention from passers-by. Pandora knew it was due to the 3 different arcanes embedded in Lola, making her seem just another unremarkable dog to ordinary eyes. With no further words exchanged, Pandora made her way to the park. The walk took her around 30 minutes, the city gradually awakening as the sun climbed higher. By the time she arrived at the park, it was just past 10:30. As expected, Camilla was already there, leaning against a tree, her large, jagged scar visible from a distance. The sight of it didn't repel Pandora, in fact, she found it intriguing. Camilla's grin was wide, her eyes flashing with a dangerous excitement as Pandora approached. Her voice was low and sharp. "You can tell when someone's lying, can't you?" Pandora stiffened slightly. The question was disconcerting. How had Camilla known about her lie detector arcane? Her pulse quickened, but once again, her arcane stirred, sensing truth. She believes it. Camilla genuinely thought Pandora could detect lies. Pandora's brow furrowed, her mind racing. She casually slid her hands into her pockets, weaving a subtle illusion around them, a precaution to mask their conversation from any potential eavesdroppers. To outsiders, it would seem like they were having a mundane, trivial discussion. Camilla took a step closer, her smile widening as she asked, "Are you the child of chaos?" Pandora's entire body tensed. She visibly flinched at the words. The child of chaos. That term had never been spoken aloud before, yet it resonated within her, striking a chord she couldn't ignore. "How do you know about that?" Pandora's voice was cold, her mind already calculating the potential threats and consequences. She silently cursed the fact that Camilla had cornered her so effectively. Camilla's grin only grew wilder. She pressed closer, her hands firm against Pandora's shoulders as she shoved her against the rough bark of a nearby tree. Pandora could feel the pressure. Camilla was significantly stronger than her in terms of raw physical strength. Leaning in, Camilla whispered, "I haven't told anyone. This secret, it's just between us." Her black hood cast deep shadows over her face, her breath warm against Pandora's ear. "I overheard my father talking about you. The prophecy, it's about you." Pandora's heart raced, though her expression remained stoic. Through her heightened lie detector arcane, she knew Camilla wasn't lying. The excitement radiating from her was genuine, almost intoxicating. "What prophecy?" Pandora demanded, the tension in her voice finally breaking through her calm facade. Camilla's voice trembled with excitement. "It was made by the Oracle, the one they call Skylight. She's an S-rank arcane user, locked away by the Heroes Association for her ability to see the future. My father isn't exactly good at keeping secrets, especially after a few drinks." Pandora's eyes widened. Skylight was a name she'd heard before, though only in whispers. An S-rank oracle with the power to see not only the future but also the past. What did she say? Pandora's voice was sharp now, the urgency undeniable. Camilla leaned back slightly, eyes gleaming. "The prophecy says, when the traitor dies, the child of chaos will awaken, and by the time it's too late, the path of the child of chaos will be paved with corpses." Pandora felt a chill run down her spine. The traitor. The child of chaos. There was no mistaking it, this prophecy was about her. She swallowed hard, processing the weight of Camilla's words. Before Pandora could respond, Camilla added, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "Skylight's ability is unique. She doesn't just see one future, she sees all potential futures. And as we stand here, those potential futures are collapsing, one by one." Pandora's gaze sharpened as she realized the magnitude of what Camilla was saying. "So, this is already happening." Camilla nodded, her excitement barely contained. "Yes, my dear. And you're at the center of it all." The awakening of chaos as Pandora stood in the park, her mind raced with thoughts, churning like a storm within her. Camilla's revelation echoed in her ears, and she couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had begun to settle in her chest. Her father was the traitor. The realization hit her like a lightning bolt, illuminating the dark corners of her memory. He had sent her on this path, and now she understood that his death was the catalyst for the chaos she felt stirring inside her. The colliding futures were collapsing because she now knew the identity of the Oracle. As if a shroud had been lifted, she felt the weight of her knowledge, the knowledge that could alter everything. The way Camilla explained it made Pandora visualize the threads of time unraveling. She couldn't help but wonder if the Oracle, whether awake or asleep, sensed the shift occurring in the fabric of fate. Do you mean that our choices in the present manipulate the future, just as Skylight can see? Pandora asked, her curiosity piqued. Camilla nodded, her expression serious yet alive with excitement. That's exactly it. Your actions can change the future, and the timelines that can no longer happen simply dissolve. The moment you make a choice, the potential paths split apart, and the ones that become impossible cease to exist. Pandora furrowed her brow, her mind grappling with the implications. So, if the Oracle looked into the future while standing next to me, and I decided to steal its power, that future would instantly shatter. Precisely. Camilla exclaimed, her voice filled with a thrill. In that instant, the possibility of you not taking that power vanishes, and the future reconfigures around your new reality. But remember, this ability to see the future isn't as absolute as it sounds. What do you mean? Pandora asked, leaning in closer. Camilla continued, her eyes glimmering. The Oracle can only glimpse a few hours ahead. While it can see every possible outcome, the sheer complexity of potential futures can overwhelm it. If too many variables come into play, it risks losing clarity. It's a powerful ability, but it has its limits. Pandora's wicked smile returned. She understood why Camilla wanted to keep this discussion private. This knowledge was a weapon, one that could change everything. What made you suspect I was the child of chaos? Pandora asked, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts. I had my suspicions since yesterday afternoon, Camilla confessed, her grin widening. When you told me your existence defied the logic of heaven and earth, it didn't sound like a mere joke. It resonated with something deeper. Pandora felt a flush of embarrassment. What had started as a jest had inadvertently unveiled her truth. She was drawn to Camilla because they shared a similar madness, a chaos that brewed beneath the surface. Camilla continued, her tone more serious. I also suspect you have the ability to manipulate others' perceptions. You can turn invisible, for starters. And I've noticed the victory over Lilith and the complexities of your arcanes. Your powers are unlike anything I've ever seen. Pandora listened intently as Camilla detailed her theories. Your first arcane is definitely plasma manipulation. The second, I'm guessing, is the lie detector arcane, which alerts you when someone is deceiving you. It must include written text, as you believed I was me when you came here without real proof. That's impressive. Only about 2,000 people worldwide possess 3 arcanes. The third one could involve some form of sensory manipulation. The fourth must be a reaction speed enhancement because you move faster than anyone I know. And 5 arcanes. That's unheard of. No one has that many. Pandora's heart raced at the realization of her own power. She felt exhilarated, yet a wave of uncertainty washed over her. Before she could respond, Camilla's demeanor shifted. Suddenly, Camilla pressed her against the tree harder, her lips crashing against Pandora's in a fervent kiss. Pandora's thoughts halted, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. The world around them faded as she grappled with the electrifying blend of emotions, surprise, intrigue, and a burgeoning connection she hadn't anticipated. As the kiss lingered, Pandora found herself drawn deeper into Camilla's chaotic allure.
Back the eternal night. The Nile flows, but the fear remains. Hate that coils through the darkened veins. Each new strike lightning in the air. Refined sun, but the danger's there. Through the underworld, the battle's strong. Evil and light, a war so long. Yet Ra shines brighter through the mist. Can't let the serpent coil and twist. The sun must rise, the skies must clear. The world depends on light's fierce spear. Hate the chaos in the deep. Serpent of the void, the world won't sleep. Darkness creeps, shadows dance. Run into the deadly trance. The ruler of the night, rule the sun with all drown in fright.
And that's it for this part, unfortunately. In the next episode of Pandora and the Eternal War, we'll explore how Camilla and Pandora's romance deepens and how she acquired all that information. We'll also delve into how Luma joins Pandora's group and further investigate her opportunistic nature. Maybe Camilla's father will begin to suspect something as well. Who knows? I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. If you click here on the left, you'll find my latest uploaded video. And if you click here on the right, you'll be taken to the playlist. At the top center of the screen, you can also see my YouTube channel, where you can watch all my videos. Until next time, goodbye.